The English tongue didn't always be as it is now. It went through many shifts during its past because of overcomings and foreign dealings. But because I'm not a virgin, I won't be talking like that for the rest of the video. That was English, a form of linguistic purism that removes all foreign influences from English, be it Greek, Latin, whatever, to mimic what the English language would have evolved into had the Battle of Hastings been a failure on the Norman part. On January 5th, 1066, King Edward the Confessor of Wessex passes away without an heir, thus creating a power vacuum. And as it always happens with power vacuums, struggle always follows. Enter King Harold Godwinson, who was the Earl of Wessex at the time. He was a very smart and very ambitious man who manages to get crowned King of England basically by saying that Edward promised to him that he would be next in line, and by managing to convince the local nobility that he would be the ideal person for the job, basically by promising more well-being, basically for the nobles that would support him. There was only one problem, that there was also another guy that apparently Edward had promised the job to. And that guy was William of Normandy, aka William the Bastard, or after the Battle of Hastings, William the Conqueror. He was the illegitimate son of Robert of Normandy, hence the nickname, and a commoner, but obviously that didn't stop old Willie from rising through the ranks and eventually becoming Duke of Normandy like his old man. Now, one really important thing to note is that the Normans are basically Vikings that became Christians and learned French, but they did keep to the old Viking customs and the old Viking traditions of codes of honor and bloodshed. So this means that when Harold Godwinson became King of England, William had to respond through good old-fashioned Viking diplomacy, i.e. gathering an army to invade England. William, obviously, having a brain with many wrinkles, gathered supplies, recruited knights, infantry, but most importantly, he gained the support of both the papacy and other European kingdoms because diplomacy still mattered. Everything was ready for the big invasion in early August of the same year, but unfortunately the weather had other plans. Because even though he was ready in early August, the winds would blow facing towards France, meaning that the ships couldn't leave. So even though he was early August, he wouldn't be able to leave until late September. But another really important thing is that he was also gathering intel, because at the same time that he wanted to go and invade England, Harold Hardrada, who was King of Norway and formerly a mercenary in the Byzantine army, was fighting against the English at the Battle of Stamford Bridge, meaning that he had to wait to make sure that the English forces would be weakened enough sufficiently. By October 1066, William had landed on Pevensey, finally ready to make the English say uncle, but unfortunately he didn't know that he would be fighting an uphill battle. This meant that basically Harold let gravity do most of the work, while the Normans struggled to break the English line of defense. Then William decided to use the 180 IQ Norman tactic of looking like he's retreating, which brought the English closer to his men, thus leveling the playing field, with Harold eventually dying after taking an arrow to the eye. With William no longer being called the Bastard, he finally got the respect he deserved, being called the Conqueror after formally taking the English crown on Christmas Day 1066. Now, William, obviously being Norman, he brought his own court with him, which obviously spoke French. This created a new era in British history with a ruling class that spoke predominantly French. This created a class dichotomy between the Latin terms of the Norman nobility and the Germanic terms of the English working class. And this dichotomy can still be seen today. Let's say, for example, that you're an English peasant and you raise pigs and cows. The moment said pigs and cows enter a Norman banquet, they become pork and beef, respectively. Let's say that after your meal, you digest. If you're an English peasant, you might take a shit, whereas if you're a Norman noble, you might defecate. And after that succulent meal, you want to relax as a Norman noble and go to your wife and fornicate, whereas if you're an English peasant, you might go to the missus for a quick So yeah, this Norman period in English history lasted for 419 years. That started with the English defeat at the Battle of Hastings and ended with the end of the ruling of the Patron dynasty all the way in 1485. This has been the history of everything, I guess. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, and follow me on all my socials for more history comment and memes. And if you really like my work, don't forget to become a patron, and I'll see you on the next one.